This is the Argo SRV, Star Citzen's new tugboat spaceship, which uses their new tractor beam tech. And it's supposed to be the savior of all disabled ships who've gone into a completely dead state. The only problem is that it's completely impractical. So CNG just published a video called Arrasted Development, where they focus mainly on this new RSI ship that's meant for mining called the Arastra, but they mentioned the new Argo SRV at the beginning of the video, where they eventually got around to talking about how it actually included a new feature in the latest patch that allows you to tug ships into port and have them repaired from the soft death mode that we currently have, which is a completely dead ship state where it can no longer be turned on or flown whatsoever. And you know, my first reaction to that was really surprise and actually happiness, because I was a bit concerned with the Argo SRV in the current state of the game not really being all that useful. With this though, at least maybe you could say tow a ship that's been disabled that has a bunch of valuable cargo on it, like a C2 or a Caterpillar, back into port so it can sell stuff and then be repaired to be functional once again. So in order to test this for myself, I got together some friends inside a server and we flew a C2 out to Microtech and put it into a soft death state. And then we called the tug over, which really took forever to get there because its default drive is terrible and slow. But once it finally arrived after an hour of waiting, we were finally able to start tugging it. Only the problem we discovered was it couldn't actually tow the ship in the gravity well of Microtech. So then we figured, all right, well, it must be that the C2 is just too heavy to tow out of atmosphere, and that you might need two, because apparently you can also stack tractor beams in 321.1. Well, a second one was called, and after waiting another 20 minutes, we still couldn't lift the C2 off the ground. It could be a bug, or it could be that it's just still exceeding the weight limit in a full planet like Microtech, which has more than 1g of gravity. So then we said, all right, well, maybe this isn't as practical of a use case, because how many haulers are disabled and actually survive in soft death when they're in the atmosphere of a planet? Usually when they hit the ground, they go from soft death to just exploded because the ground does damage to the ship's hull. So I figured, all right, let's give it another chance, but let's try it maybe in 0G, in orbit about a moon or something nearby, because that's probably more likely where a hauler is gonna go into soft death anyway. Well, after quite some time of doing some setup to test this out, we discovered that the Argo SRV really struggled to move the C2 in 0G, but what's more important is that it couldn't actually take the C2 into quantum with it. And for that matter, it couldn't do it with a hammerhead, or I very much suspect a Caterpillar from Drake, which is a ship they showed off in the preview of the video that I have been talking about that revealed this information. And this is the point where the idea for this video that I'm making right now completely changed. I was really excited to make a video talking about this positive new change to the game, where you can now recover vehicles that have a high value that will take long to reclaim and are quite expensive on the reclaim, which also could be carrying valuable cargo. This, after all, is probably the most important use case for a ship like this. The time and effort that you put into it would be paid off in the fact that what you're hauling is really valuable. But no, that's not at all the case. And this has left me really frustrated. One of the problems I've had with the SRV since it was released is that I wasn't able to really think of a single scenario where this would be a more useful ship than anything else. For example, I've heard people talking about how you could use it in mining operations to move rocks that have already been broken apart to make the mineable rocks more easily accessible to the miners. But to that, I would just ask, why not just have another ship that's a miner to collect it? You already have that extra person. You could be making more money by having more people working at it. And that same thing goes for salvaging. You could just have another ship to salvage versus having somebody in the Argo SRV. The only real kind of useful scenario that anybody has mentioned that I agree with is that you could grab ships from the high-risk salvage missions, of which there's only one type, where you can pull a ship out of a danger area so it can be more easily salvaged. But to that, I would say, You already need 2 people or a lot more time to be able to pull this off. Why not just have the second person be in another salvaging ship and salvage it lickety-split? Still, I can kind of buy the idea that you'd be more safe. And after those potential use cases, it just becomes a lot more memeable. You can, say for example, move a tank on top of an 890 jump, or lift up an ROC mining vehicle so it can more easily access a rock that's too high for it. My favorite was taking a size 10 bomb from an A2 and like dragging it behind you and then throwing it at something. That's really funny, but the whole time you're doing it, you can be blown up at any time by somebody just shooting that bomb and blowing you up and anybody around you. So, like I said, all of this is really fun and memeable, but it's not at all that practical. Now, to be fair here, this ship is eventually going to be useful later when the game is more developed and you can actually tow larger ships with groups of these. But my real point here is that with the introduction of this ship, there doesn't really seem to be a real practical use case for it whatsoever. It's turned out to be very much like the Starfare that was introduced a little while ago with its refueling feature. Yeah, sure, you can refuel ships, but why bother when you can just go back to a station or reclaim the ship? The same thing goes for virtually any ship this thing can haul back to port. Yeah, you can haul the ship back to port and maybe it's got some valuable cargo, but is the time and effort required for it really worth it when you can just take another ship out there and grab the cargo off, or just reclaim the ship if there was nothing valuable on it in the first place? I don't think so. I think the reality is that this is just a novel ship for now, and people are going to use it for really funny things, but that's it. It's a meme ship, and that's just kind of disappointing. And it's more disappointing that they could have avoided this altogether. I guess that's why I'm so frustrated. The Argo SRV could be a very practical ship right now if they could just rebalance the ship tractor beam to be able to tow big ships into Quantum. Yeah, I know it can break things like allow you to throw a tank around, but honestly, tanks are hardly used if that's going to be your reasoning. The sort of exploits you can perhaps use it for are so minor and niche scenario that I think that making it function for big ships far outweighs the potential issues with it. So what I'm saying is really, CIG, why did you make the ship this way right now? I know it doesn't have all the systems, but at least allow it to tow a C2 or a Caterpillar or any of the hauling ships that are high value, long to reclaim, and have valuable cargo on them. At least then somebody's going to use it in a more practical scenario. That's all I'm really trying to say here. I mean, come on, CIG, you guys showed towing a Caterpillar in the very segment where you're talking about towing a ship back to port so that it can be repaired. You implied that that's its use case, but you know, maybe this is just the marketing team doing their thing again, not knowing how the game works. I don't know. But maybe I'm missing something. I'm certainly not going to claim to know everything like some people think I do. If there's a better use case that you guys can think of that is better than just having somebody in a more purpose-built ship, then let me know down below. I will upvote you, and I will pin your comment if you can think of something really, really good. But I'm talking for right now, guys, not for the future. Right now in the current state of Star Citizen. So that's it. What do you guys think? Are you as upset with the SRV as I am? Do you think it's as useless as I do? Let me know down in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.